See, Olivia. See, Emma are these two lovely men right here, and he's a CLO. So we're gonna start off with, we're gonna let Jordan introduce our sponsor, which is from Becker, and he's gonna talk for a minute, and then after that, we're gonna get Chris Jenkins, and then we're gonna let Dr. Scott introduce Chris Jenkins. And then we're gonna eat Mexican, then we'll do our panel, and Dr. Scott's gonna talk about Chat GPT. Sound good? You ready?
Essentially, a company that offers study materials to study for things like computing. Too much detail. I know I talked about it at the last happy hour that I attended, but I would like to introduce my account manager, Carson Crosby, who's going to do a presentation for y'all today.
Yeah, so as Jordan mentioned, so I'm the account manager for the Carolinas. So I live just north of Charlotte. Today's my first time visiting Florence, so it's good to be here on campus with you. As I get started, if you want to scan that QR code or put in the URL if you have a phone or a device. Be interactive. I want to kind of get to know who I'm talking to a little bit. I feel like everybody's taking a picture of it, so I need to put on a good smile. I'll go in and it'll ask a few basic things, but some things I want to see in here. Yeah, and if you can't scan the QR, if I go ahead, you can put in the URL glsr.live/AFC. Could have been NFC too. The NFL, AFC, NFC. Who we going for? We got Chiefs or Eagles this weekend? Eagles. Any Chiefs? I didn't hear any. All Eagles, huh? That's impressive. Or somebody doesn't want to speak up and get booed for some reason. Awesome.
I don't watch.
I don't
You'll
probably end up happy with that. Oh, yeah. This is asking, so what year are you in school? I'm curious to see what kind of curriculum we got here. So all the juniors and sophomores. Freshman and grad, so really good things. A lot of times it's just juniors and seniors, so it's good to see plenty of sophomores and even some freshmen. Awesome. This should be pretty obvious since we're here. We'll give you a second to go through and keep filling that out. But so I have a few minutes today, so I want to talk about two different things. So the CPA, CMA. So I guess I may get to this in a minute, but kind of raise the hands. How many of you are accounting majors? About finance. And some double majors. Any like econ? Any sociology? Yeah, there we go. You got a good mix of everybody. So the CPA, I'll get to here in a little bit. But CPA will be more directed to accounting majors. CMA, everybody in here, as long as you graduate with your bachelor's degree, would be eligible for the CMA. So I'll talk a little bit more of that. A little bit more about that in a second. So the CPA, so I'm sure everybody's heard about what a CPA is, especially if you're an accounting major. I imagine you probably got plans to get your CPA in the future. So the CPA is going to be focused more on I mean it's run the name, but public accounting, but it's going to be on compliance, basically making sure companies are doing what they say they're doing with their money. So a lot of people will go into public accounting. So you may have heard like the Big Four, the G7, some of these big firms. There's also a whole lot of different firms all throughout the Carolinas, which you'll speak to Chris Jenkins in a little bit, who knows a lot about that. But then with the CPA, a lot of people will work in public accounting for a while, and some will go into industry and work for any company you can think of is gonna need accounting. The next one, the CMA. So the CMA is a little bit more probably applicable in that to be a CPA, typically you're going to be an accounting major, and you'll have most of your credit hours in accounting. CMA is a little bit different, to where accounting majors a lot of times will still get their CMA, certified management accountant. But then we see a lot of finance majors or econ majors or even sociology majors who want to get into the business school. So the CMA is open to any major, and it's going to be more. So you see here more on the supporting the creation of value. So go in and instead of just measuring historical data, you're looking at that and also forecasting and making business plans and things like that.
Let me interject.
Of course.
We offer 10 CMA scholarships, which gives you free access to the exams, 2 exams. It gives you free prep materials, and it gives you a free membership in the IMA, which is CMA. And you're going to see a panel discussion tonight. We went to the leadership conference, the IMA Institute Leadership Conference, and that's the same sponsor for the CMA.
Yeah, great opportunity. Yeah. You see here, so it's asking, so are you more interested in CPA, CMA? I imagine most you probably had an idea or inform a little still. And some of you may not want to do either. So for that, probably undecided will be the option for that. See these is kind of hard to see on the screen, but you got it. As of right now, about 15% CPA, 15% CMA, and then the rest are undecided and maybe even neither. Awesome. So yeah, a good mix.
24%.
There we go. So a little bit more about that. So I've kind of discussed what the CPA is and what the CMA is. Big question a lot of people have is, okay, how do I get those? And the exam is going to be a big part of that. So I've kind of got it broken down here. I'm not going to go through all the details. You can, look there if you need, but typically the CPAs, you're going to need 120 credit hours. So typically accounting majors to sit for the exam. To be licensed, you'll need a little bit more. You'll need 150 credit hours in order to become an official CPA. CMA, as I alluded to earlier, as long as you graduated with your bachelor's degree, you're eligible for your CMA. So a lot more opportunities to not just traditional accounting majors. You can see the exams broken down. The CPA exam is broken down into 4 sections. And since most of you are seniors and I guess what I'm saying, most of you aren't going to be taking the CPA exam in the next 10 months or so. So most of you will take audit, financial, regulation, and then a mix of you'll have one of 3 choices as to which discipline. Again, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that, but it's something to be aware of. And I'm sure if you're planning on a CPA, you're probably well aware of how that exam is changing here at the end of this year. The CMA is broken down into 2 parts. Takes about 18 hours, where CPA takes about 6 hours. Any broad questions about either these exams or CPA, CMA in general?
Would a non-accounting or financial major take a CMA just to take it, or what's the benefits of taking it?
Yeah, so it would typically be somebody who's kind of wanting to get into accounting and more into management.
So it's certification, always nice to have a credential, to have an extra background, even MBA.
Yeah.
Simultaneous. So having that extra credential in any field is a benefit, but it is focused on finance, management, accounting.
Yeah. Question on this one. So this would be if you're you're planning to sit, I'm curious how soon? Judging by the demographics of our grade levels, I imagine most of it, will probably be more than 12 months, but we may have some. Yeah, yeah, it's a fun one. So we got a few coming in. How many of you are planning in the next year or so to start sitting for exam? Jordan, awesome. CPA, CMA? CMA, awesome. Yeah, that you're in for a fun time. So with that, so a little bit about Becker. So Becker has been around for a really long time, preparing people for the CPA exam, 60+ years now. We've helped over 1 million people, 1 million people pass the CPA exam. The Big Four, if you've heard of the Big Four accounting, they all rely exclusively on Becker. The top 100, vast majority of them rely exclusively on Becker, and that's to prepare their new hires to come in and to get their CPA. Are going to be using Becker, which makes us feel really good about ourselves, knowing that most firms want to use Becker. A few things as you start to prep for the CPA or with the CMA and decide to use Becker, you'll see a few different things. So first off, you'll know that the Becker is going to be very personalized to you. So everybody's course is going to look slightly different because everybody has slightly different skill levels, different strengths and different weaknesses and opportunities. So the course is going to use AI, which we'll hear more about in a little bit, different kind of AI, but still the same concept. It's going to be very tailored to your skill set. To where it's going to give you areas that you need to work on, and it's going to continue to build up your strengths. We'll also have skill master videos, so it's going to look probably pretty similar to a classroom setting, to where we've got instructors, so we're going to really just give lectures. So they'll go and talk to you, they'll read through the textbook, they'll give you pointers, things like that. Then we've also got simulated exams. So when you take the CPA exam and the CMA exam, it's a very high pressure situation. It's got a lot of times it's your job opportunities and career are relying upon passing those exams. So what we do is we take essentially the exact same way that it's laid out on your computer when you're going and taking the exam, and we put it into the course. The idea behind that is by the time you finish the course and you're ready to go and sit for the exam, you've already taken the exam several times, at least in your dorm room or wherever you're taking it. But it's going to look very similar. It's going to have the same font, the same calculator, the same types of questions. So that way, when you get it and you're sitting for the real thing, you say, "Oh, okay, I've done this. I feel a little bit better." So that's all I've got for you. So like I said, I'm Carson. Jordan is my campus ambassador. So any questions that you got about Becker or the CPA exam or CMA exam, you've got great resource in Jordan, and then of course Dr. Scott and plenty of your other professors as well. You got a couple minutes for questions if we have any about Becker or CPA exam or CMA or anything like that.
Study time projected for CPA versus CMA.
So the CPA is going to be a little bit more naturally, but because the exam is longer. And it really is kind of broken down by section, but then it's also going to be dependent on your skill set. So typically financial or FAR is going to be the one that requires the most study time, most content. We'd say typically about 130 to 150 hours of study time. And then we look at one that has slightly less content, take BEC, for example, which maybe some of you won't even get to take BEC, but that would be more 80 to 100 hours. So that kind of a rough estimate. So if somebody's able to dedicate, say, 20 hours a week to studying, and they're taking, say, BEC, we're looking at about 4 to 5 weeks of study time. If you're doing FAR, you're looking more 6 or 7 weeks or so with that. Yeah, so definitely a lot of prep on it and a lot of planning in advance to get that down.
Are you seeing firms often encourage start in August, September, take the CPA exam, study in the summertime? That's not that formula for a lot of folks. Are you seeing like the Big Four pick up the tab for new hires as well before they actually officially start?
For Becker, you're saying? Yes. Yeah. we see a lot of times if somebody gets an offer, say in fall recruiting, that they get their offer in November. Most of the big four and even a lot of the non-big four are giving people access to Becker immediately, so they can go in and start studying. For those who are getting licensed in North Carolina, you can actually sit for your exam up to 120 days before you graduate. So yeah, so that's unusual. Most people will wait till they graduate and take it over the summer or sometime in the next year. But yeah, absolutely.
The CMA, you can take it anytime while students.
Yep.
Graduate.
Yep, you could. Yeah, the one caveat is you gotta graduate within 7 years of taking the exam, which most of you are in a pretty good position to do. So, but they do that. So if somebody has been working professionally for a long time and they might not have their undergrad, or sorry, their bachelor's thing going through the exam and work on it.
Austin is our sponsor who is treating us to Mexican dinner and to ice cream. So thank you. We are honored to have you.
Two of my favorite things.
So make sure you sign in, please. Sign-in sheets are going around. So sign in, pass them forward, if you find them. There's some that haven't signed in.
As I said earlier, we're going to let Dr. Scott introduce Mr. Chris. Dr. Scott is our advisor. He is the man who is going to come up here and introduce us. We got it.
Been appreciative. Chris Jenkins is CEO of the South Carolina Association of CPAs. I actually met him before I started here, the summer of 2019. And it's been an honor and a privilege. He's taking very good care of our students. We were at Fall Fest. Who was at Fall Fest here? Any takers? Are you going to get to come up and on the panel after the IMA panel? But you're going to talk hopefully about the wonders of SCAPA. But Chris has graciously agreed to come and talk about succeeding in business, success skills that go with that. So without further ado, I'm going to get on Chris Jenkins.
So when I did this, originally agreed to it, I thought I was going to come out here and talk about CPA. Something I'm pretty good about. I know all of those rules and everything else. And then somebody threw me a curveball and said, no, I want you to talk about business. Because that's more interesting and it's going to have a lot of different views here and different goals. So I went to my staff because I don't have that presentation made. And I said, hey, build me something that I'll be able to use. And instead of doing that, they said, here's something that will challenge you. You're going to go out and you're going to talk about business skills. You're going to talk about the things that make you successful. Don't look at it. We want to see how well you can communicate without actually any prep. And I mean, I haven't looked at it to the point that I sent you the wrong presentation. Another one that I have to do next week. I mean, yeah, it looks okay. I'm not as creative as some of the people on my staff. I am the CEO of SCAPA. Let me tell you a little bit about where I'm from. In the early 90s, I started college and I was going to be a financial planner, certified financial planner. And I had a child when I started school. It makes it a little bit difficult. And they told me that I had to buy a computer. Now, this is the 90s, it's pre-internet. We had phones with cords, and cars that you didn't have seatbelts with. I'm that old. They didn't have floors. I didn't have to use my feet to push it or anything. And I went out and I bought a box of parts because that's what I could afford. And from that box of parts, I built 4 computers. I kept one and I sold 3. And I made about $3 grand. And I thought, this is a good financial plan. So I started a hardware company and I started building computers. And I did that for about a year, year and a half. And then you saw a lot of the big companies start up, Dell, Compaq, HP. I thought, oh man, I'm never going to survive doing this, so I'll do consulting. So I went out and I found some clients, attorneys and CPAs. And I worked with these folks to help them understand technology, how to get the most out of their investment, how to make their computers talk to one another instead of using floppy disks to move from one to another. Anybody know what a floppy disk is? It's the most painful thing on the planet. A horrible thing. With my clients being attorneys and CPAs, I quickly learned a couple things. Number one, attorneys don't pay their bills. What are you going to do? Sue them? They don't care. And CPAs, for a good portion of the year, think everything is critical and urgent. So by this time I had 2 children, and I had CPAs calling me at 2 in the morning and saying, hey, my mouse doesn't work. That got old real quick. So I sold that company. I started a training company, and I created network professionals, and I trained them how to do that. And I sold that company, and I went to work for the Ohio Society of CPAs as a network engineer, and I worked my way up to CIO. And then when I turned 40, I finished my degree, and I got the job in South Carolina as the CEO, and I've been doing that ever since. I am a certified association executive. I am a Cisco certified network administrator, a certified information systems professional. I am a Microsoft certified trainer, a Microsoft certified systems engineer with ++S, DB, and various other things. Credentials, lifelong learning, those things are critical to success. Also an AFC certified mechanic in transmissions, engines, brakes, and electrical, and a licensed electrician. Because you can never have too many skills, and I know I'll never go hungry. I say this for a reason. My work experience, the things that I've learned, all of those experiences build me into the person that I am. And I'm going to tell you why that's important as we go along. I was a farm boy from the ages of 1 to 9. How many of you have been on a working farm? Yeah, it ain't a lazy man's job. And even at 5 years old, you're getting up at 5:30 in the morning and feed the animals. And if you don't feed them, you don't eat, because if they don't eat, you don't eat, and your dad's going to force that lesson. At 9 years old, my father passed away, and I was a farm boy from a small town who moved in with my aunt and uncle. He was a physician. And I was expected to be able to play golf and climb and do these things. I shouldn't say climb. The first time I went to a golf course, I saw a sand trap and decided to build a castle. I saw a tree and I climbed it. That's what people on farms do. So I had to learn new experiences. From there, I went to live with my mother. We didn't get along, so I went to jail. And then from there, I went to live with my grandparents, and that was a rough part of town. All throughout this, I was exposed to 4 high schools. Why does any of that matter? Okay. I learned my work ethic. I learned how to deal with people who were privileged. I learned how to get in trouble and how to navigate a system that nobody ever wants to be in. And then from there, I learned how to work through problems and move out of a bad situation into a good one. And because of that, I appreciate how experiences work, and I appreciate people. How many of you have ever run into somebody and you're like, man, shut up, I don't ever want to hear your voice again? Those people, however annoying, are important. They have value. The secret for you is to get over your disdain for them and what they're saying, and to capture the value. If you can find value in every interaction, you can build yourself. These are the skills we have to learn, and they're the skills that are difficult to learn today because we've changed the way we communicate and do things. How many of you have ever seen DISC? Myers-Briggs. Okay? I guarantee you, when you go out to work, you're going to have staff meetings and team building, and you're going to see these things. And they're all about you learning who you are. And they're going to present themselves as, you can be better. You can make a difference in yourself. And they're going to tell you where you live on this. And they're going to say a good balanced person is somewhere near the center. That is absolutely wrong. You are who you are. You are wonderful. That's just how it is. I happen to live way out here. I don't care how many hours my staff work. I don't care where they're at, as long as the work gets done. Period. If it takes you 2 hours, awesome, go home. If it takes you 20, you're not going to sleep that day. That's just the way that it works. When you have a conversation with me, I don't want details. I want to get to the point. I don't have time for that, ever. And a lot of people think that makes a great leader. You're going to drive results. You're going to drive the business. You're going to make decisions. Charles Manson was able to do all of those things. Hitler was able to do all those things, not great leaders. Okay? What a great leader understands is the balance that comes from a team of all of these perspectives. And that's incredibly important because these folks down here drive me nuts. But if I want to be able to make them a productive part of my team, I have to change my style, not my attitude, not the way that I work, not my expectations, but my style. When I communicate with them, it's about ensuring that everyone is on the same page. I know this is going to be uncomfortable for you because I'm going to have to change the rules midstream. What do I need to do to get you comfortable? Because we have to choose another direction. That's important. How I tell them something is going to be what drives those results. Now, I've told you that I've had a really interesting career. I've been very successful, at least for what I think success is. Still to this day, I have an executive coach that I meet with every 2 weeks to help me remember the importance of my staff, the value that they bring, and to slow down and communicate with them. I help them understand the best way to communicate with me. And I make every effort to change my communication style based on where they're at on that chart. For me, as the leader inside of our organization, I have one job, the care and safety of my staff, to remove impediments from them doing work. That's important. And that's really what I do. And that's how we get a productive team. The difference between a leader and a manager can assign tasks. They can manage schedules, they can manage people. A leader is someone who can convince people that they want to do better, that they want to move forward, that they can be part of that productive team and what they're doing is valuable. To do that, you have to create trust and vulnerability. How many of you are comfortable trusting somebody? How many of you are comfortable being vulnerable around other people? You're well on your way. I'm good at trusting people. I don't like to appear vulnerable. It's my personality, I know this. But if they can't feel that I feel, it's not going to work. So that's part of the deal. I have a rule. If we're not failing, we're not trying. The only way you accomplish new things is by trying, and they don't always work. And if you fail, that's just another success. It's a chance to learn how to do something differently. Now, if you fail trying to do the same thing 3 times, that's different. You're going to need a little redirection. But failure is going to be part of this, and they have that trust in me that if they fail, I'm not going to go crazy on them. And there are different types of communication. There's written communication, there's verbal communication. There are different ways to get through messaging. How many of you have ever had to deliver bad news? Thanks, right? How many of you have done it via text? Somebody's got to be honest about it. As a leader within my organization, I noticed a pattern of things. While I was in the office, right, people would tell me good things. As soon as I left the office, I started getting emails about problems. Nobody wanted to come tell me that problem in person. So I had to make a rule. The rule for me is I work 7 to 3. I'm in the office sometimes till 8 or 9, but I work 7 to 3. Those are my office hours. You're not allowed to send me email after 3 o'clock. Unless the building's on fire, you can't do that. So if you have an emergency, you have to call me. We're going to chat. But it's important that people learn how to deliver those messages. It's also important to understand you don't have to bring everybody together to explain every little thing, right? So you have to choose which method of communication is going to work best for you. This used to be easy, right? It was a phone call or you mail a letter. That was easy. You had 2 choices. Do you need to do it right now or can it wait a week? Because that's what it took. Then we got email, and we got Slack, and we've got Teams, and we've got text. With all of these different forms of communication being used inside of a business, you have to be able to really know when it's important to use what. I'm going to give you a little hint. If you think in your mind, this is going to be an uncomfortable conversation, you should do it in person. Don't hide, do it in person, right? That's important. Written communication, quick and accessible. In-person communication allows for a lot more context. I can read the body language. I understand your tone. Any of you ever gotten a text message from somebody, you're like, oh man, they're a butthole today. Had to clean that up a little bit. They weren't intending to be nasty, but you just read tone into it. I know nobody but me does that, right? I can stand here forever silent if you don't respond with me. It's about communication. So if you need that tone, if you need that experience, always do the in-person. I prefer if it's in person, we can do that. I also employ a methodology called zero inbox. I keep 0 emails in my inbox. Every day before I leave, they're cleared. That's just the way it works. I clear them at lunch, and I don't look at my email except for when I get to the office at lunch and before I leave. And I clear them every time I look at my email. So it's important that you understand if you're sending me something that says, thank you, I don't want that. If it's something that I'm going to need to consume and archive, awesome, I'll do that. If it's about scheduling a meeting, great, you can do that. But if you need to ask me a question, just stop by my office. And if I'm busy, I'm going to say, I'm busy. And you know what? Come back later. When I go to somebody's office and they're busy, believe it or not, you know what they say? Come back later. Because that's just the way that it works. Managing meetings, getting feedback. It's important in a meeting that you have an agenda, you know what you're trying to accomplish, and that you know the communication style of the people who are there. It's also really important to understand that you want to get buy-in. Your body language is critical. How many of you have sat in a meeting or sat in a group discussion or had a group project where one of the participants says something and you just think, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard? Did you say that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard? Right? Did you stay quiet and just think that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard? How about let's flush that out and see where it goes. Why do you think that that is an excellent idea? How is that going to help us achieve our goal? How many of you have fought with somebody on social media? Why? Politics. Great. I love that. Did you have a debate? A quality debate? You could argue the other person's point of view. Okay. That's a quality debate. A quality debate is about learning both perspectives and retaining what you believe. Sometimes you want to convince people. I see this a lot in political debates on social media. I want to convince someone that I'm right. You don't have to be right or wrong. Believe it or not, it is perfectly acceptable to have differing opinions. Right? My oldest daughter is 30 years old and hasn't talked to her mother in 10 years because their politics don't align. Right? My daughter's politics and my politics don't align either. The difference is we can agree to disagree. And that's okay. I appreciate her thoughts and she appreciates mine. And if you can do that, that's wonderful. I always recommend that you don't do it with strangers and that you don't do it online. If you want to have a quality debate, do it in person and don't do it with strangers. Strangers you know nothing about, and you're not going to convince them, and even if you do, it doesn't matter. If you want to convince somebody of something, put something out there that's well-written, articulate, and do it as a blog post and turn the comments off. Because you don't really care what the other people think anyways. If you disagree with somebody, try to understand their perspective. Try to use non-threatening terms. And I'll recommend a couple books for you. Getting to Yes is a great book. Agree on the things that you can agree to, and then work on the things that you can't. Crucial Conversations is a great book. I give Crucial Conversations out as a wedding present. It is with all my children, and I do it with everybody else I can think of. Because it teaches you how to have a conversation without emotion, stating the facts, and getting to the point where you can find an agreeable solution. That's the same thing that you're doing in a meeting. And if your meeting becomes non-productive, leave. It's a strange concept, right? If you get a group meeting together and nobody in the room is leading the meeting and you're not accomplishing anything, leave. Just leave. That's the best way to end up with productive meetings. Because then people learn, rather than spending an hour thinking the person across the table is stupid, you have to communicate. Now, there are a lot of strategies for this. A lot of people will say, ask everybody to give their opinion. A meeting is not about finding consensus. It's not about everyone agreeing. It's about moving something forward. I've used this several times. That's a great idea. Not right now. Because right now we have to do something different. How many of you have taken technology classes? You understand agile design? Okay. The concept of agile design is understand the base requirements, work on those, get them through testing, get the minimum functionality working, and then add and add and add. And every project that we do, I base on agile design. The first iteration is not going to be great. The second one's going to get better, and eventually we're going to get it where it needs to be. The same goes for meetings. Don't get wrapped around the axle. Park the idea, move on to something you can actually accomplish. This is the hardest one for me. Active listening. I'm going to help you all out. Interested is interesting. Interested is interesting. It doesn't matter what age you are. If you go on a date, interested is interesting. If you can listen to the other person, even if you're married to them, and hold your comment until they can get through it and you can actually absorb it, your response to that comment will be very, very thoughtful. How many of you have heard something and before the other person gets it out of their mouth, you want to jump down their throat? Anybody? Okay. This is a skill that you have to practice and you have to actively listen. And when you're doing that, pay attention, not try to formulate your argument. Anybody in here do that? They're listening to somebody and the first three words come out, you're like, ah, it's bull crap. I got an answer for this one. That person has value. Your job is to find it, not for their sake, for your sake. Because by understanding them and their perspective, it makes you more informed. Even if the information that you got was they're an idiot. Now you know they're an idiot. You don't have to tell them that. Technical expertise.
I got a question. How long did it take you to where that wasn't your response?
What, you're an idiot?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
I practice every day. That doesn't mean that I'm flawless. Okay? There are some things that are so egregious that I continue to exhibit bad habits. I'll be 50 years old this year, which makes me, I've just realized recently I'm old. I was like, I'm close enough to 30. When I was 30, I was like, 30 is not old. I got to 40, I was like, still pretty close to 30. And now I'm like, I'm kind of like AARP age. And I still haven't mastered this. Like I told you, I still meet with an executive coach every 2 weeks. I love quotes, and on my notes, I write quotes before meetings. One of my favorite quotes is beware the fury of a patient man. And I write that at the top of my note when I'm going into a meeting where I feel like I need to accomplish something. Horrible quote for that, right? So my executive coach saw that and he scratched it out and he said, I'm seeking to understand. It's a completely different perspective. Here's the thing. I'll let you know a little bit of the end of the presentation now rather than waiting all the way out there. The things that I'm talking about today are emotional intelligence, decision-making. These are human-only skills. These are the only skills that cannot be replicated in machines. A machine can spit out a technical answer to anything, but the human mind takes in and processes the feelings of the people in the room. And to motivate people, you have to have them on your side. If you and I have a disagreement and my goal is to get you on my side, me sitting and going, you're an idiot, it's not going to work. You're going to probably get more aggressive. See?
Oh, wow.
So here's what I'll tell you. I'm not going to accomplish my goal that way. I'm old, you're young, you're big, I'm small. I'm probably going to get my butt kicked. I'm just not going to go around doing that. So we have to think about that all the time. Yes, I believe what I believe, and I believe it's important that we achieve the goal. How do I get there? I'm likely not going to change your opinion. How can I help you understand there are good points that I'm making, even though there are other points that you're disagreeing? What in this whole batch of things can we start the conversation in agreement for? Right? Can we all agree that not murdering people is good? Awesome. Okay? That doesn't mean we're going to have the same stance on abortion. But we can come up and we can find areas of agreement. And quite honestly, you're not going to change that stance. And it's not your job to. But we can say, we want to make sure that everyone is heard, has rights, and feels protected. I don't need to change anybody's mind. If you want to go out and support your cause, that's awesome. And through that support over time, people might understand your passion and may come to your side. But I can guarantee you, no matter what the argument is, no matter how politically charged it is, you're all human, and there are at least 3 things you'll agree on. Find those things and start from there. Technical experience. I told you I have a whole bunch of certifications after my name. Anybody notice I don't have CPA? No. My technical skills are in technology, management, and thought. I was considered a futurist for about 5 years. Not because I was really, really smart, but simply because I understood how technology works and it moves forward. Today, we are seeing huge layoffs in tech companies. Everybody seeing that? And everybody's like, oh, look at all these workers, and they're gonna come into my business, and they're gonna help my business run. CPA firms are like, we're gonna capture these technology people. No, you're about to experience the next tech revolution. The things that you see today will seem like 8 tracks, and you don't even know what those are. 8 tracks in 3 years, because all of these people getting laid off have technical skills, foundational technical skills, and relationship and networks that are going to allow them to start tomorrow's startups. And there's a ton of venture capital. You're going to see new products, new solutions, new businesses. I've seen it before. I was around before Google. We couldn't just ask questions. Someday you're going to be able to say, I was around before chat GT and all the AI stuff, and we actually had to make our own decisions. Like has anybody heard this? I had to take the CPA exam without a calculator. Yeah, sucks to be you. We have real tools now. The same thing. At some point, you're going to be like, in my day, I walked uphill both ways to go to class, and it was great. But the reality is it's all going to change. What you see today and what you will see over the next 6 months to 18 months is an explosion in new tech. Incredibly powerful new tech. So whatever you're going to do in life, in management, in leadership, here are some things that you need to understand. Master one thing and move to the next, never stop learning. Understand the value of languages. How many of you know structured query language, SQL? Okay. It's how we access data. It's how we create reports. It's how we understand and forecast information. It is a language. How many of you are taking accounting classes? Is it accounting, a math class? It's a language class because it's the language of business. It's how business gets done. The power of various languages. We communicate through accounting because we're explaining how things are working. That technical understanding of how business operates, how the finances work, how to understand financial statements at the very minimum is critical for anyone who's going to be a business. The ability to understand the data that your business has collected, what's working, what's not working, to create future solutions is critical. The ability for you to communicate verbally and in written form is critical. All of these things are the technical foundation. And you learn that technical foundation while you're in school. It's what education is about. What you don't learn in school is mastery. And in order to do that, you have to have that strong core and then go out in the real world and take every experience you can get to do something else, to move past that, to create big, hairy goals out here and chase them. And if you fail, who cares? Because you learned when you went there. Failure is good. Every decision leads to another decision. There is no good decision. There are no bad decisions. Every decision simply leads to another decision. Failing to make a decision is dead. Understand that. Build that into your technical library. Build that into your foundation. Build the languages of business. Understand the technical parts of what you want to do. Work hard here to build that foundation, but never stop learning. Always move on. Don't fear the moonshot. There was a point in time when humanity thought heavier than air flight was impossible. But at the same time, they were outside watching the birds. How could that thought process work? You see heavier than air flight, but yet you say it can't be done. Never assume it can't be done. The number one way for me to get something done is to tell me you can't do it. And build on that tenacity and build those core skills so that you can do it. I like my cars to go faster and use less gas. I like my motorcycle to go extremely fast and be scary. So I make sure that I keep those mechanical skills sharp because I'm too cheap to pay a mechanic. Keep those skills sharp. Collaboration, the value of others. Diversity of thought is critical for success. Experiences mean something. You can't get diversity of thought if you just align yourself with people who do and think the way that you do. I have a staff member who is 20 years old. She's a graphic designer. She replaced my son who had the position before her, and she is the best graphic designer I've ever seen. And she loves doing it. She's so comfortable. So you know what I did? I hired 2 interns and made her manager. And I didn't give her any prep work. I just said, do it. She failed miserably for a week. And then she used the people in the office to figure out how to manage that process. And by the end of it, she had figured out what I had done to her and why I had done it. And every time now that I'm doing something, whether it be at the State House and I'm talking to a legislator, or I'm going out to build another presentation, she wants to know how she can be involved. It's the excitement of being able to build on those skills and to collaborate with a team that you trust, that you can be vulnerable with. I can go to my staff and say, guys, this week I've got 3,000 things that I can't get done. I need you to do some of them. And I don't tell them to take this or that. I say, here's my list. What can you do? My staff do that as well. And that team collaboration, the idea of using other skills is important. Equally important is understanding what you think is right isn't always right. When I give someone a task in my mind, I have an idea of what it's going to look like. And when it comes to me and it doesn't look like that, it would be very easy for me to go, that's not what I wanted. Instead, I say, based on your experience, why is this the right thing? And then if I need to make modifications, I can. But 9 times out of 10, their thought process to get where they got was better than what I expected. I just have to change my frame of reference to say, I'm not always right. I've got to use their skills. We've got to collaborate. Results are better when you work as a team. Problem solving. All of these things go to problem solving. I'm going to ask you a question real quick. What's half of 8? Who says 3? Who says 0? All 3 answers are correct. It's a matter of perspective. Mathematically, half of 8 is 4. But if you take an 8 and you cut it down the center, vertically, you get a 3. If you cut it horizontally, you get a 0. We used to call this back in my day gifted, because we could think differently. One of the problems that we have as a society, and it's been created by social media, is certainty. We are absolutely certain that our position and our thought is right. That certainty that comes from the echo chamber of the people around us leads us down a path where you can't find the other answers. And it creates an inability to solve problems. There's more than one right answer almost all the time. Do I have any programmers in here? None of you? How can you not be doing programming? All right, there's a programmer. We call you a unicorn. Female programmers, I love them. In a programming world, there is literally 100 ways to complete the same task, none of them right or wrong, some more efficient than others. This skill, this problem solving, is critical. For example, The CPA has a set of qualifications in order to become a CPA. You've got to have 150 hours of education. You've got to have 1 year of experience. You've got to pass the exam. We believe that 150 hours of education means accreditation, credit hours, semester hours. That's not what it says. If we have a barrier to entry that is about education hours, how can we have a rigorous program designed outside of that scope? Some people would say go back to 120. But the requirements are clear. How can you take all of the requirements and solve your problem? You have to apply that problem-solving set. All of you have seen the meme online with the 6 and the 9 and the 2 guys on each side arguing that the 6 is a 6 and the 9 is a 9. Okay? That's just the point. The point is, right and wrong in the real world is always gray. I believe in rules. I believe in structure. I also believe that you should always challenge them. Is a rule for a reason, or just because at one point somebody thought it was a good idea? I think everybody should do that. And that comes from different experiences, diversity of thought, collaboration, proper communication, not getting emotional, defensive, or aggressive. Controlling how we communicate, how we work as a team, how we listen, and reducing our level of certainty. If you've ever cheated on an exam.
I'm honest.
So here's the thing, you're not alone. As a programmer, they made me take algebra at 40 years old. I was like, yeah, this isn't gonna happen. So I wrote a program to take the exam. It was faster for me to write the code, to read the screen and take the exam. I scored 100% in 35 seconds. I obviously got caught because I cheated. But my defense was, if I understood the rules well enough to write the program that it was perfect and more efficient, shouldn't that count? Pretty good challenge in the rules. I lost. I had to do some disciplinary things, and I also had to retake the course. And I used the same program, only this time I put positive. Sometimes rules are silly and they need to be challenged. Not the cheating rules, don't do that. There's ethical dilemmas there. But you know, sometimes it needs to be challenged. If you're driving on the freeway and you're 10 minutes from home and the speed limit is 65, but you have to go to the bathroom really, really bad, I think it's okay if you do 80 so that you don't defecate in your car. It's just better that way. When you really think through the problems and you think critically about the things around you, are the restraints that you believe exist really there? The rule of mathematics is a good rule. It's one that we've learned since childhood, but it doesn't answer what half of 8 is in every possible way. Think differently. An Apple slogan, right? It is still called Apple, right? You know, I can't even make the bathroom work right. I'm really messed up. And this comes into creativity. I like to say I'm not creative. I have creatives who work for me and I'm not creative. And what they tell me is I'm probably the most creative person ever, because if I set a goal, I will find any way to get there. I can navigate any solution, but I can't draw a stick person. So they tell me, don't make your own slide. I keep trying, but they do it. In business, being creative and solving problems is critical. Cash flow issues, staffing issues, legislative issues, all of these things, negotiations. Being creative in how you apply your skills will get you a long, long way. In your toolkit, creativity, diversity of thought is critical. Thinking through the problem in a different way. Someone who excels at making things with their hands or gifted world. They put this in here specifically because I agree with that definition. Creative people make pretty things. Logical people make excellent things. But they think my logic is creative. Wouldn't you agree that your code is art? It is absolutely artful. You know what? Financials are artful as well. A properly signed contract is artful as well. A great written article and a test, all of that is art. It's creativity. How many of you like creative writing? It's fun. Storytelling is great. All of these things lead to creativity. Consider yourself creative and apply that creative nature to the things that you're going to accomplish in business. Never sell yourself short. What's this one? More creative. You can tell the creatives made this, huh? Open-minded, asking questions, active listening. All of these are part of the creative process. Here's the thing about creatives that I don't understand. They create something out of thin air, and then they bring it to me, and I can say, yeah, it looks great, but can I change this? And they're like, yeah, no problem. And when I write an article and I think it's perfect and I take it to somebody to proof and they start marking it up with red, I'm offended. Something about creatives allows them to do that, to use pictures to tell stories, to be more reasonable than the rest of us. That skill is key. Think of ways you could be creative and not call me an idiot. See, I got it. Yeah.
I would say when it's interesting, let's communicate a little further. I may not agree with your point of view, but let's hear you out.
I'll do a different way. It's an interesting concept. I'd like to know more to see if I could get to an area where we might agree. But both of those are right. Right? It doesn't matter how you say it, it's the open-mindedness that allows you to do it. It's that creativity in the way that we think and what we do. Creativity, and the reason that they put this in there, is a machine can create art. A machine can create recipes. But what a machine can't do is truly think creatively. They can create product, but they can't think of something that hasn't previously been in some way or another defined. They have to work within the bounds of the training that they're given. Whether that's artificial intelligence, or it's just a build onto virtual realities or virtual machines, it doesn't matter. That creativity doesn't exist inside of logic. You have to go outside, use the logic, and bring in all of the extra with it. So I want to go back, and I'm going to give you a couple things, and then you can ask me a bunch of questions if you like, or you can say, man, the old guy's boring. I'm going to give you some advice. When you come to interview with me, I ask very specific questions without right or wrong answer. Who wants to try my question? Okay. I'm thinking of something in this room. What is it?
Yourself.
No. No. What?
The board.
Nope. Who? Gonna come back to you. Who wants to try? Who wants to try to answer my question? Yes.
You thinking about the students in here?
No.
You thinking about why we choosing, like why he said the board, like what made him think of you thinking about the board, right?
Oh.
You are an idiot.
Yes.
What are you?
That's a good answer. All of them are excellent answers. And I'm going to tell you, I'm not thinking of anything in the room.
So when you asked that question and he said, like, when you say no, would you say no? And
Yeah.
they can ask again?
Yeah.
Or- Wow.
Here's the thing. There are going to be people who are going to guess. I know those people are going to keep trying in the face of failure. There are going to be people that are going to ask me qualifying questions. Is it in front or behind you? Is it to your left or the right? Those people are going to be logical, programmatic thinkers. And then there are going to be those people who just stop and can't do anything. Those folks are the folks that like to work in defined processes. Depending on what I'm hiring for, I need a different set of skills. I need people who are willing to take a risk. And if they're told no, try again. I need people who are going to be thinking in a programmatic, logical fashion. Or I might need somebody who's going to do what they're told and be happy with that. Because if you take someone who's not a process person and put them in a process role, they're not going to succeed. They're going to hate their job. They're going to hate you. And more than likely, they're going to find creative ways outside of the rules that you've given them. Sometimes that's good, oftentimes bad. Or if you take that process person and you put them in a decision-making role where all they do all day long is try to figure out problems, and they're always told they're wrong, they're done. None of those qualities are bad. There's no wrong way of answering that question. It just depends on what I'm looking for in that person. I also ask people if they believe in aliens. And then when they give me their answer, I debate them on the side of why they're right or wrong. Because what I want to do is I want to see if they can have an intelligent debate without becoming emotional. And the higher you go, the harder those questions become. Because quite honestly, inside of my building, in the last 8 years, I've automated 5 positions out of my staff. That's what I do. I build very efficient systems. The people that I have are critical people. They're what make my business work because I found the right people with the right skills. And most importantly, people who have enough backbone to tell me when I'm wrong. And you know how I keep them telling me when I'm wrong? Vulnerability and trust. Response. Not calling them idiots. Does it frustrate me when they tell me I'm wrong? Do I always agree when they tell me I'm wrong? No, I don't always agree, but we can have a discussion. All of the things that I talked about today will be equally as valuable in 40 years as they are today. They are human-only traits. Everything else that we do today can be automated. Emotional capacity, empathy, logic, outside of rules, active listening, critical thinking are all things that the human mind does that cannot be replicated. So, questions. If you had to rate me on a scale from 1 to 5, am I a 3? 4. So I'm half of 8. I got a B. That's pretty good. Did I meet your expectation?
I'm gonna write a book.
I've written a book,
Oh.
You got a particular.
but it's about web design. You'll hate it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Come up with your interview questions.
What am I thinking about in this room was a lesson that I was working on with my children early in their lives. Right? And it's really about finding solutions to problems. You know how children come to you all the time and they're like, why is it this way? And then they say, why? 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 I'm not a good dad. That irritated me to no end. So I gave them the skills they needed to figure out why without bothering. And then we can do other fun things. But throughout my career, I had a way of, okay, what's a good way of saying this? I'm not a judgy person. But when somebody walks through the door, I can instantly tell you whether or not they're crazy.
People reader.
Right? I can tell you if they're going to work well with the team, or if there's somebody you want to put someplace else. So every position I had, even when I was the network engineer, I was in every interview. And through those interviews, I found tools and strategies, and I won't give you all of them, that allow me to understand both the position I'm trying to fill and the skill set that is going to be required for them to be successful, because this is my gauge of success as a boss. If I hire you and you fail to meet my expectations, and you have to leave and take a job that's no better than the job I gave you, did you fail or did I? I failed. It was my judgment that brought you in. I made a commitment to you to make you better, to make you part of a team. So when my people leave for a better opportunity, that's a win for me. If I have somebody I have to fire, or they leave for an opportunity that's not as good, I failed somewhere in the interview process, in the training process, something went wrong, and I did that. That's on me. People who come to work for me have aspirations. If you want to be a state CPA association exec, or you want to be an exec, if you want to be a CTO or a CIO, they'll work for me because I'm known for creating those positions, those leaders. That's what I do. And I do it by pushing them out of their comfort zone and making them think differently. It is not up to my staff to conform to the way I communicate. It is up to me to adjust my style to best utilize their skills. If I scare the hell out of them, it won't work. That's what you have to remember. No matter if you're in a leadership position or a support position, your ability to communicate, understand the thoughts of those around you, and employ them in a reasonable fashion makes you successful. And through that success, you will move up. Because people who can do that are rare. And it takes thought and practice. Okay? It takes thought and practice. For example, if I were up here right now, and I've done this before, and my fly was open. It's not right now, right? Okay, I'm good. See, thank you. If my fly was open, how many of you would be comfortable raising your hand and say, hey, man, bar door's open? Okay, well, that's kind of rude, because when I leave and I get outside and I feel the breeze, I'll be like, I was up there the whole time with my fly open.
But we can do it like silently, like,
I'll just stop, you come
Yeah.
up there. I like right before you start, ask you, come and ask a question and tell me.
But the point is, that's a hard conversation to have with somebody in a position of authority. Right? I had to call my boss one time. I was working on a $5 million project at the AICPA headquarters in New York. We had spent 18 months building a system. And it didn't work. And it was never going to work. And he was in California at a meeting. And I called him and I said, this thing's never going to work. And he said, okay, Chris, I believe you. But here's the deal. If I get there and you're wrong, you've got to figure out your own flight home because you don't have a job. And he caught a plane and he came. I proceeded to go to the bar and drink my worry away. Not the best idea, but it worked at the time. But I was right. What he said was also right. This is the same man who called me back in the days of modems on his cell phone to tell me he couldn't connect to the network from LaGuardia, the airport. And I said, well, that's strange. Everything should be working with all troubleshooting. And I was like, I don't know what's wrong. He goes, everybody around here is just crazy because the phones don't work. And I was like, what do you mean the phones don't work? Well, the phone lines are down. Now, did I tell him at that point that he had made a critical error in judgment? No, because I did not have that much trust. What I told him is, let's wait 15 minutes and see if it started working. And you know what? I got an email. Thanks for fixing LaGuardia. It's about that leadership. That is a man, he is my mentor. He learned through time. He created 5 CPA CEOs out of one state: Georgia, South Carolina, Montana, Missouri, and there's another one. He was not an easy man. He held very high expectations, but he also set very high expectations for himself. I would have followed him off a cliff. And you know why? Because in my career, I made big mistakes, $5 million mistakes, $80,000 mistakes. And when I made my $80,000 mistake, it was because I was ahead of the game. I was too early on something and it failed. And I got a certificate of appreciation for my lack of sleep and a $50,000 bonus, and we threw the product away. But he said it couldn't be done, and I built it. It was, believe it or not, a social network. It wasn't good, but it worked for the time. Your job as you move forward should be about how you could impact and help those around you excel. There is nothing in the world that is better than knowing that you've made a positive impact and helped someone acquire new skills for success. And you know what? You can do it without even liking them. You don't have to like their behavior, but you can make them better. You'll never force it, but if you have good behaviors, you'll be able to shift their behavior. So hopefully that's stuff about leadership skills. If you want to talk about CPAs, I can do that all night. That's all I've got.
Who would like to go work for Chris? And that's an endorsement. So thank you very much. Well done. We're going to take a dinner break. Dinner is served and available. There's still some ice cream left as well. And then we're going to come back in about 10 minutes. We're going to have two panels. One will be a panel of the Pittsburgh journey, 6 folks that made Pittsburgh. And then we have a panel of folks that made it to Columbia, that made a visit to the Board of Public Accountancy, and we made a visit to Stafford's Fall Fest.
Those both sound very exciting.
Actually, pull this guy, the folks that attended and got money and scholarships from SCAPA, see, that decided that was worthwhile. So, good luck. Let's go ahead and take a break, grab some lunch, grab some dinner, grab some dessert, and we'll see you back in a moment.
When he graduated, I think he graduated late.
So there is a website called Learn Business Video, and you can pay like $200 and give you lifetime subscription to all of the .NET languages, C# and all of that. My favorite right now is PHP. But in PHP is about different. If you have any site hash, it's WordPress.
Well, I know.
Still warm?
I was gonna leave that.
SQL is, so here's the thing, SQL is a programming language, not a programming. So when you're gonna do data manipulation, for example, you gotta use XML structure rather than use loops. That becomes problematic. You gotta be very, very creative to figure out how to get where you want to get for SQL and then make it efficient enough that it doesn't take 2 days to actually do the data.
So,
We're not gonna do okay.
You guys, yes, sir.
There, but you're gonna get it, so. But I think,
doing it access is a lot easier than a lot of other people, like, application and everything. I don't think I'm there yet, but, access is definitely a lot easier in terms of just being able to understand. And I was just a child, I think it's definitely slow.
So if you ever want to, I've got a video that will walk you through setting up a SQL dev instance, downloading the data set, and the various different things.
Yeah, I
Everything you can do is and really the SQL side and outside of it. And then I've got all those different BI tools and all. My email address is on the website, scappa.org. I'm cjacobs@scappa.org. And if you ever get stuck, you want where you want to be, because we need more people programming.
I know you want to see.
I with Anna from over half, so we kind of do hit a lot, but she helps me more in terms of resume based and just like stuff. I still do stuff from Parker, but the internships that they have, like they're more station interest groups, they go to people that actually live in the area.
What if you get around here, just let me.
I'm just willing to.
I mean, right now, if you can learn things like Microsoft Power Automate and those types of things, and basic data conversion and transitions to paper, you know, they will be able to get it in. So what's cool about that is you're not working in the same firm, you're going to be going on consulting and working with other data sets that then you tell the story of what you do. And that's pretty cool. So this is what we found. This is what it means, and this is how it forecasts out. And that's the real value of the CPA. It's a lot more than doing taxes or audits. It's about driving the business. So, and you don't have to be a CPA. Trust me, the firms pay for further all day. So here's the thing. You heard all of my credentials. There's a reason for that, right? Every credential has value, and the CMA is incredibly valuable. Low barrier entry credential. I really don't like it because it's too hard to compete with, right? I need to get CPAs, but I recommend, so don't tell on me. If you were looking at CMA versus CGA, in South Carolina, in this region, CMA is going to be far more powerful and the barrier to entry. I think, and I tell my CPAs this, the CPA with a CMA is a great thing. The CPA with a CGMA, most of them grandfathered, it doesn't have the same impact.
CPA and CPA from the schools.
I think the CMA is valuable for everybody. There's going to be an advantage. I don't like it because the barrier to entry is too low and it's too easy for people to get. And that's just because I have a competing license, and my license, because it's a license, is way up here. And this is something you get right now and employ today, and it's going to make a difference.
You guys want to eat something?
I'm not, but you need to figure out if I really, really like it. I read your article. I thought it was a good article. I'm glad to know it. I read one of them, and it was that you were testing the exam.
Oh, yeah. That was a post.
Yeah.
But my other two, one is career space, one is factory logic, and those are good.
I would appreciate looking at those. I can tell you, I'm really working hard to get the AFC data to understand the human bias. I the data set. But the value that comes from someone who can design the checks and balances of information and information out. If we feed these inputs, the test is the expected outputs, just like you do a program, right? You're going to create test routines as it learns to continually realize that it's managing. And I think there's a big business in when you started employing this artificial intelligence or augmented intelligence. When you start employing that, making sure that there's not, making sure there's not trust in it, right? We trust too quickly now. So there has to be something to verify that it's doing what it's supposed to do. AI auditor, that's what I'm at. And so I think talking about that new job would be exciting to me, because it's going to be not only checking it, but now you've got to solve where it went on ramp. How do you do that? How do you reteach that automation? I'll be honest with you, it's a job I'm looking at when I retire. I really want to go in and just hammer on these systems, because I think they will lack the human only traits. And I think that we're going to have to learn as humans how to be working with machines, not to business on them. Was that what you wanted? Well, you wanted me to deliver something different. I tried.
I really enjoyed the presentation.
Appreciate you staying for it. Especially that I did it on the fly.
Love hearing your perspective on all that, especially the interview, but they kind of really took my interest. Just seeing how they compete in the, how these people make decisions and how they go about it.
I love questions that have no right or wrong answer, but help someone identify where you're. So we always build a job that you're happy. And then find pieces of things for you to make you more comfortable. So you grow.
I have a brain question. So how do you? How do you typically count? A strict set of rules one day to maybe for decision making.
So I'm gonna tell you, the people who rely on rules and processes create structure. That's normally courts they're being. They can move into a role where they make decisions, but then they're gonna have to have rules around how they make decisions. So they don't really, you don't change your personality that much. What you do is you learn how to manage the people who work the way that you do. But I will create stretch goals so that they can do it, but it doesn't make them comfortable. And so you've heard the term promoted above your skill. That's what happens. Somebody's really good at a process job. You're like, man, they're just great, hard working, they have great ethics. Then you take that person and put them in a job where they have to make decisions because that's what the next level is, and they fall apart. You've got to really watch that. And if this person is really good at this, reward them for being really good at it, and strive them in other areas and take control. But don't ever just assume that somebody's really good at doing X, then you think do X, because it doesn't work.
Oh, that's.
Everybody gets raises regardless of their job, because right? Government has this horrible mentality. You're in a pay band, and you're gonna do this job. And the only way to get more pay is to move into another job. That's horrible, because people that are really good at the job get penalized. So that's why you have government workers that aren't good at their jobs, because they're penalized if they're good at it. Now, if you make a conscious decision to change because you want to be different, that's a different, right? But most people, when they get to past about 25, their personalities.
I'm just curious about typically how you as someone in your position, or how you're much more experienced, how you typically deal with decision making. People don't expect to change that much.
Right, the core of how you make decisions and what you believe is ethically right, the gray scale, it really stays static after and that's why you have my wife is correct. Every rule is a rule. Whether it's good or bad, it's a rule and you follow it. Where I'm kind of like, that rule is more of a guideline.
We can come back to it later.
Yeah, if that rule said this, you would be much better. So I'm just gonna find a way for it to say that.
It doesn't say you can't do other things.
That's exactly. So, but people who are in that structure, they like that's their comfort spot. And the way you want somebody to elevate that, you gradually move them out of that. If my goal is not to change their personality, to make them more skilled and more well-rounded.
Thank you, Francis. If you really, really want and you will accept. Good thing to keep track of. You know what? Not to make you- Actually, I had a programmer, he was a mathematician, had a master's, came to work for me, in a programming position. And I started him, he was hugely offended. We would walk around the parking lot. He goes, you know, I'm smarter than you. And I said, yeah, you probably are. I said, but I get paid more. And we had this conversation, and then he said, you know, why is that? And I was like, because they're not paying me for what I'm doing. It's paying me. Are going to get where I'm at. But you have to have this. He was worth way more. And then one day I came in and I said, you know what? I'm gonna give you 5 times the pay I've been giving you. And he goes, well, why? I said, because you earned it. Because you stuck it out, you went through it, and because you are worth every bit of it. So about 3 years later, he called me and he said, you know, I've never had a mentor like you. Because you made me work for it, but when I did, and I got that creative freedom, and I was free to fail. I've never experienced that. Those are my success stories. The people who are now working in various places, doing much better than I am, are my success stories because I was a small part of that.
So when you hire someone, so you go forward, you have a mentality. I'm taking the men, I want to go to that.
No, these on the Instagram.
That's my job as a leader. And you be better when you arrive so that you can gain more success. And in that, right? I first found that I don't want to do it myself, I can make a phone call and have it done in a day. Because not only are these people masters of what they do, they've got entire teams they're managing. And what I'm gonna ask for is gonna be small, they're just gonna kick it out because they respect me, they appreciate me. So I have not paid for programming or the last 15 years. Wow. Now, I can do a lot myself, but when I can't, I just call. They're like, yeah, awesome. So imagine if you're a small business owner and having that kind of network where you build successfully, you're gonna be a lot more profitable. Yeah. Because you have the mentality that every day you, my son would say, always smile, because you don't know what somebody else is feeling.
It's a really good way to think about it. Very good mentality.
A simple smile is a really weird thing, but when somebody smiles at you, you almost feel the
Get
need
it open.
to do it back. And no matter what mood you're in, it's going to go.
I actually did a little bit of research on that. I always thought it was interesting because I don't know why I was writing on this, but I noticed that in the past place, there was always an individual who always smile. And people would generally have a good or happy response because it's just something that is innate in human us. Right. It's just a good thing to carry throughout day-to-day life.
It's hard to stay angry when somebody's laughing.
Yeah. Or it's what makes you laugh.
I mean, it's contagious. Attitude is contagious. Go home unless you have more questions. I appreciate you playing along too and participating.
Of course, I always do, you know, that's how great presentation gets done, make impact.
I appreciate it, and helping me figure out how the bathroom. That was all.
Yeah. Thank you.
We're going to put this.
We got to settle down. That's what we said.
I talked now, so I had to spell out right here. And so then I went into consulting, and that was kind of fun. Then I went into training. But I first. I never had a problem. I was. But I also didn't have a lot of staff because. Having your worst possible. And I learned. It's much better to have staff.
through that and do it. But so right now in the world that we're in, there's gonna be a technology evolution. If you're into something and you do it well, somebody will buy that and you can move to the next thing, and it's gonna fund your next commission. By the time I started working for someone else, I had 3 children. I needed to do this, I needed stability, and I needed this. That's really where I went into the role as a full-time employee with the Ohio Society of CPAs, and then that led me to really appreciate what the association do. And then I moved up through that. Where I'm gonna do. So an interview process is a 2-way process. You need to ask the person. So. When I'm working, how am I going to progress? So what are the benefits for continuing professional education? Do you cover the cost of certification program if I wanted to get additional credentials? If you're taking a technology. So you just ask, what are these benefits? And that's not being entitled, that's helping them while helping themselves. So it's going to be in both our best interest if I continue to grow my skill. Now, as you grow your skills, it's more, it's not. But they pay for all my credentials, they pay for any education that I want. And I gotta do 80 hours a year, and I don't put online, I'm going to Vegas. But that's part of them wanting me to be the best.
Well,
You get someplace, they're like, no, you. They're not looking to advance the people, they're looking to get work done. So asking the right questions of them, right? If you are a problem solver that's critical thinking, asking them a set of tough questions of, if you were to ask what half of eight is, what would you expect the answer to be? If they four, and you say, well, you know, consider 3, and they don't want to hear how you got there, they're looking for process. And if you want to do process, look for somebody that's always said 4 and 4 and 0, right? So it's really about you formulating your head what's important to you, culturally, work-life balance, and where you want to be, and how you can align it. If you want to work in that, let me know what it is, and I'll find you. I got enough people that are all over the country that will hire you. So do you want to do network architecture, network design, or do you want to do programming and data analysis? What IT functions are you? You like I want you to go to IFC squared with IFC cubed, and I want you to look at the IFC.
Yeah. And that might be one.
So really look at programming is very the CIS is hard for them to get. They don't even, the exams can't be done. Starts out with people safety first, disaster recovery, and those types of things. You are skilled in all of those areas. So you're kind of like an IT medic, psychologist. You're making people better. If you don't look at what the structure of it is, you can probably align some classes with it. You're gonna have to take some psychology. Trust me, I got a ton of psychology. And the reason for that. Helps manipulate our meaning. Here, you will never go down. And Certified.
I'm not working with me.
Team building is important. Right at. Like, went to my doctor here and I said, hey guys, we're gonna lose $500,000 by covering all of our restrictions. We got it. Bring me back like in 60 days, we're gonna $100,000. And now I'm being like, that's about attitude. We're gonna stop. They want to make sure that I succeeded in my home. That added almost our first of the year, so that's what I suggest. Maybe
Because sometimes one person steps up, very talks about. Just get the room.
You want to hear a great story? When I started my career as a network engineer, I had 2 employees. I had a 2x4. I wrote motivational stick on it, and I would draw around and smash their desk. Guess what? It didn't work. But that was my mentality, right? It was the manager mentality of getting the task done. And throughout a lot of different things, I learned how to manage people in the for 10 years.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, I gotta get home. My wife's gonna kill me. Have a great trip. I shall. Thank you all for having me. I will know whether or not I did well, but if I did, I'll get invited back, and if I didn't, I won't.
Does it matter? No.
That's waiting for next year to figure that out.
I know, and I'm just sitting on pins and needles the whole time, waiting for the call.
It's not a free book.
Hey. Not feeling much starting.
I know you guys are on overtime. We appreciate your indulgence. We have 2 student panels coming up. One for our trip to Pittsburgh. One for our 2 trips to Columbia. The folks that attended those events come up afterwards. So. You guys are on.
Okay. Hey guys, okay, so we went to the IMA Student Leadership Conference this past October. It was in Pittsburgh. Y'all gonna hear more about it from the rest of us. Yeah, go ahead.
Michaela, do you wanna go?
Oh, hey guys, I'm LaKayla. I was able to attend this trip to Pittsburgh on last year. I'm not an accounting or a finance major, but I did have the opportunity to be able to attend this trip here. I'm glad I did have that opportunity because I was able to gain leadership skills. I was able to be exposed to different leaders who were in bigger companies. I was able to network and meet new people of all different races, gender, backgrounds. It was amazing. I gained so much information from this trip here. And there were speakers who spoke on different things. They were like CEOs, and we had the opportunity to meet the famous NFL quarterback for the Steelers. His name was Charlie Beck. But anyway, it was a great opportunity for me, even though I'm not gonna be doing anything in accounting and finance, but maybe I will do something on those lines, with my major, because I'm healthcare administration, so I would have to know a little bit of that, background. But anyway, it was a really good opportunity. One takeaway from the trip I gotten was, don't let anyone dictate where your future is, gonna lead you. So, if you have an opportunity to do something like this in life, just jump on it, no matter if you don't feel like you are appropriate for the position. Just take the opportunity and just see what you can learn from it, because every opportunity you can learn something from it.
Okay. Okay, so with what LaKayla said, yeah, go ahead and take those opportunities. So as we present, just keep in mind, we are having another IMA Student Leadership Conference next year. It'll be November 9th through the 11th. It will be in Detroit. And even if you're not, like she said, a business major, finance, accounting, anything like that, I'm a business general major. Accounting is not my thing, but I did actually pick up a CMA examination practice book. So like, I know some people were interested in managerial accounting from the first half of our session. But if you're interested, you can kind of like look through it if you would like. And they have a lot of resources like this. Some for the financial accountants, a lot of just accounting side things, but you still do learn a lot from the conference, even if you're not like business.
Just like she was saying, is, I guess, mainly for accountants, CPAs. That's why Cummins was down there. They were one of the main sponsors of the events. And when you'd go and talk to, what are they called? What's the people who put tables out there? They're coming like they're sponsored, they're sitting there. You know what I'm talking about? Vendors, that's the word, vendors. So they're out there and they're pretty much basically talking to you about, I guess they're more so expecting people to be going into the accounting profession. So that's what they're there for. But I mean, it wasn't specifically accounting when they were bringing the professional speakers that would come and talk. They weren't just talking for accountants. They were talking, what is moving?
It's you when you move it.
Like that?
Yeah.
No, it's not moving on you, it's zooming on other people.
Oh, dude, that's crazy. Anyways, yeah, I had a great time, met a lot of great people, and I got to fly across the country on a plane, and it was all free. I got to get up there. I said across the country.
But we didn't go across country.
I went up.
We went, yeah.
I went farther than I've
Not
ever been in my
across.
life, so I had a great time, and I hope that all of y'all, I recommend y'all to apply for next year.
Yeah. Okay, hi, my name's Cameron. I went to the IMA Student Leadership Conference as well. That's why I'm up here. It was in Pittsburgh, which was really cool. And basically, shout out to Dr. Scott, because we got to go on this really nice, full paid for trip to Pittsburgh. And we got to learn some cool things with some nice business people. We got to network and kind of put our names out there, but we also got to see the city a bit. And like Jordan said, we got to go somewhere new. So I definitely recommend applying for next year because it's a great opportunity. You do miss like one day of classes. So I don't know if that bothers people, but just heads up. But yeah, it's a really cool opportunity to meet new people and put your name out there and see a new city. So I highly recommend it. It's definitely a really great decision. So.
My name is Gabriel Mosley, and I'm part of the IMA, and I went to this Pittsburgh trip. The best thing I would say, the best panel for me was going to the ethics. It was the ethics. No, it was the generation. It was the generation panel with like how they all looked. They were just you got a generational panel with, two different generations, like people like Dr. Scott Sage and like our generation, how they like communicate.
Across the age
The
gap.
communication there. That was a good. It was good.
And I was like, because because the way generation of like Dr. Scott's like formal email and ours to like text messages. So getting to understand those point of views really made it the trip once. And I recommend going to the next trip. Yeah. That was very. That would have been fun.
I'm Sandra. I'm not an accountant or finance major either. I'm a finance major, but I enjoyed this trip a lot. I met a lot of students from like their schools, so you get to meet students who may also have different majors and stuff as well from literally everywhere. We also get to like, he was talking about like different like panels and stuff we went in, so like you get to kind of sit in and zoom in on certain things. So you get to talk about like how to build your resume. They had stuff for that. You had kind of like other sessions you can go in where they talk about just general business stuff, or you can focus in on accounting or finance. Like he was talking about the generational one, like you get to talk to people who are like in our age range that also work in big companies as well. And in terms of like being a finance or accounting major, like the companies are there for you, but you also can talk to them and get other aspects and like learn other things that they do as well.
Any questions? Y'all have any questions for us?
Not so fast. Come on. It's that easy.
Yes.
Cameron, what was the thing that you took away most from that trip?
So I think the thing that I took away the most from the trip, actually, I think was just getting to meet a bunch of really cool new people. You know, I got to meet a bunch of great business professionals, but I also got to meet people from new schools and just socialize and see different parts of the city and meet and network and put my name out there. So now the businesses know who Cameron Castatori is. So I think that was the best part. Yay. Yeah, that's my best part.
I just have one more thing to say. It wasn't just a trip, so it's more, the IMA is like, does anybody know what Beta Club is? Beta Club, okay, so it's kind of like the Beta Club of finance and accounting for us, for college. So they do have like, what I'm looking at is different student awards, so they have different competitions and stuff like that. And you can apply, they had a t-shirt competition where you design your t-shirts and you go in as a school, they vote on the best t-shirt. They have problem solving groups, and you kind of build as with your this will be our chapter. So the IMA chapter at your school, we're called the AFC, but whatever your IMA chapter.
We are an IMA chapter.
Your official chapter. But you'll build with your school's chapter of some sort of a problem solving team, and you would apply for the student leadership conference. That's what I want to say.
And I mean, just look at how beautiful we are. You know,
Yeah,
like,
we dope.
we are,
We didn't even know each other.
since this trip, we have bonded.
Not all of us, not all of us.
And LaKayla,
Not, yeah, don't.
LaKayla stays 6 minutes from me. She took dinner for me since this. And this is, we're pretty much like best friends now, you know? All because of a free Pittsburgh trip. Anytime you get to get on a plane.
Oh my
that's-
God.
yeah.
Not the plane. If I hear one more thing come out of Jordan's mouth about the plane.
I like everybody that went on this trip except Cameron. He talks too much.
Wow, that's coming from you.
He knows, look at his eyes. He knows.
Oh, yeah, another thing, we were able to get free swag from all different kind of businesses. It was like all kind of cool stuff, even, you know, stuff that you can use, stuff that you can just remember. We had those nice socks, y'all seen out there? I mean, you can always use socks, but we just had some really good swag stuff that was out there too from the vendors.
Anything on comments on the first day they had these corporate visits, company visits? Anything on from the experience you want to share?
So like the first day we were there, we kind of just went with, we got to pick a company to go with. So they had PPG, which is like a paint company. But we, like going to those companies, you learn that they don't also like just do like what they present. Like when we went to PPG, we learned that they make like the color for the planes to keep like heat out and stuff like that. They do stuff with windows. So it's like, it's more than just what they present. And they also, you got to go to a hockey game if you went to talk to the Penguins. So there's just a lot of stuff you get to learn about in terms of outside of accounting. So going to learn about like these businesses and what they do, how they get themselves out there, and different transitions that they go through as well.
And was there a job fair, or were there top chances at those booths when you were walking around? Were they looking for people? Were there opportunities to explore?
There was definitely a lot of internship opportunities, a lot of like links, and like you had LinkedIn. It's not all listed.
I mean, I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
No, please,
I'm so sorry.
no, by all means, you have LinkedIn. He made like 50 friends on LinkedIn. We would be like places like outside of the conference, and he'd be like, yo, give me your LinkedIn, like, let's be friends on LinkedIn, like. Like, we would be, Jordan's like outside, he's like, LinkedIn, anyone? Yeah. Like, literally like 50 people.
You can tell this was a fun group. By the way, and as a chaperone, they made it easy. I really appreciate what you guys did, how you handled yourselves. Very professional, very capable. I think you got a lot of value, learned a lot, shared a lot, and I learned too. So I appreciate your efforts. And I think 3 of you had never been on an airplane before. So 3 out of 6.
Yes, Dave.
Yeah, kind of cool. Kind of different. So, but you guys did very well and integrated well with the surrounding, even though you weren't accounting and finance. Realize the value.
That was loud, bad. Okay.
That was, that was.
She took planes over and Spirit on the back, so even those that hadn't flown before got the full effect and the full value and the full experience.
That ain't that bad, y'all.
Not so bad.
Go ahead and jump on Spirit now.
Other questions you might have? How many might think about coming next year on a trip like this? I mean, there were 30 people apply. We had 6 that we had a budget of $5,000. So we had 6 that were able to go, compliments of the school. We were thinking about doing some other fundraising, get some more on the list. Next year. But it's a valuable experience. If you're a management, finance, accounting major, there is definitely value. If you're not, there's definitely value. Healthcare administration, HR, whatever it might be, marketing, IT, programming, whatever opportunities. It's always nice to have broad perspectives, and those perspectives are welcome at these kinds of conferences as well. So urge and encourage and pretty powerful offering.
I'll also say like, I was an alternate for the trip. I originally didn't get selected. But like, even if you apply and you are alternate, there's always an opportunity for you to still be able to go. So like, even if you don't get the first pick, don't be like opposed to applying again. I mean,
There was nobody better than you, though.
That's right.
karaoke.
Any questions, comments? Get that around.
Never mind.
All right, anybody who went on the Board of Accountancy or to Fall Fest, come on down. We had about 7 or 8 people at Fall Fest from Scapa. We had about 3 go to the Board of Accountancy meeting, the gathering. So please. I'll let you guys take the lead and talk about what you did, what you experienced, and why it might be worthwhile.
So I did not attend the Board of Accountancy meeting, but I did go to Fall Fest. This is my 2nd year attending. The first year I attended, it was kind of like everything's new and like you're trying to network with people, but you're also a little shy. But you end up meeting a lot of really nice people. There's actually this one person I met my first year. I went to talk with her name, Rebecca, and I cannot tell you the number of times I've bumped into her at different accounting events that are around. I went to Webster Rogers Elite Conference this summer, and she was there, and then I went to Fall Fest and she was there again, and she's actually the Becker Campus Ambassador for USC. So you meet a lot of really meet people, and it's a good way to network. This year, whenever I went to Fall Fest, I didn't attend any of the seminars, but I did attend for the scholarship dinner. And so essentially, SCAPA, they have an educational fund scholarship. You can apply for it if you're an accounting major. And it can be anywhere from $500 to $2,500. I want to say that the application process, you kind of have to write an essay about what your career goals are and get 2 letters of recommendation. And it's a really good way to meet people, because whenever I went to the scholarship dinner, I actually sat beside someone that works at the same company that I work at now. I'm doing an internship with Webster Rogers, and I got to meet her, and I got to network with her, and I got to meet all these other students from different schools, and I kind of just got to mingle with them, and you get connections, and it's just a really good way to put yourself out there and to meet new people. So yeah.
I'm Olivia. This was my first time going to SCAPA, and so like she said, her first time, she was kind of nervous, kind of not really sure what to expect. I realized a lot of it is continuing education for CPAs, so I'm gonna be doing that later on in life, so it was a good experience to see what I'll have to be doing, for my job requirements. I'm gonna apply to some of the SCAPA scholarships, see if I can't get in, but yeah, it was a good experience.
Sign the swag. What else would you do differently now that you've gone twice, you've gone once, you've got some perspective? What are some thoughts that you have about how you approach a conference like that? You're saying the first time you go, it's a job fair. Best time to go to a career fair or job fair is when you don't need a job, because you're going to get nervous, you're going to be scrambling and trying to figure out how to do things. But the next time you go, you say, oh, I actually looked at the people that were going to be there at the job fair. And then I circled the ones I want to attend or meet. And then I circulated and I made sure there's enough time and whatever. What tips could you give somebody that would attend one of these to enhance the experience? Or next time you go, you'll enhance the experience.
Definitely try and make connections with as many people as possible. I made some really good connections with people, speaking with them, and like kind of, you know, making friends actually, because that's what me and Rebecca are. We're friends now. We connect, we stay in contact. Every time we see each other, we're like, hey, how are you? And also, don't be nervous. It's a conference. There's gonna be plenty of people there. More than likely, they're not gonna remember you unless you do something really bad. But you do want to make an impression. So either be really good or just don't be really bad whenever you're.
But if you're really bad, they will remember you.
They will remember you if you're really bad.
Just spell my name right.
Yeah.
I met a lot of that have been CPAs for many years, and so I didn't really have I don't know. I feel like there weren't a lot of other students when we went.
This year, there were not a lot of students. We were the only, I'll share. Last year, SCAPA had a student day with a second day Friday. It was a 2-day conference. Last year, we represented half of the 16 people that were there. You say, USC is right there. Aren't they all going to come? No. Number of schools came, but we had 8 students. This year, they had no registrations outside, and we registered internally. So I called Chris. I said, Chris, I got students that are registered, that are ready to rock and ready to go. And he said, bring them, come on down. And you're right, there were no other students really participating this year, but they were trying to figure out how to do students. I was saying they isolated students last year and had people come to them. But Rogers came and spoke, and one of the partners, the other partners came. Nice guy.
I've actually met him. I've seen him in the office. So.
Yeah, that he's on some committees of SCAPA too. So good point that, you know, there weren't a lot of other students. That made you special.
Yeah.
Because
People were looking at me because they were like, that girl's really young to be here.
but they want to talk to you. Whenever I bring students to these events, they want to know. They might have kids that are students, and they want to know what's going on with students, and they want to be able to better relate to their kids and the profession. Last year when I went, I became a podcast guest, and then since then I've been on 6 or 8 other podcasts. But this kind of snowballed. A journalist who he's got a great podcast show, and I've written about the profession and about the pipeline and the needs, that there are less people going into accounting. It's a great career opportunity. There's more job security because there aren't as many accountants coming out of the pipeline. But anyways, I talked about some reasons why. I was sitting next to him at lunch. We connected. He was a guest speaker this year, and I talked to him for a little while again, and we keep in touch through LinkedIn. How many on LinkedIn, by the way? Okay. And anybody in my class right now knows by Sunday night, all my students will be on LinkedIn this semester. It's part of my curriculum. 5% of the grade, so. But anyways, there's power. And being able to take advantage of these conferences, kudos to you guys, congratulations on the scholarship. We had 2 scholarship winners there this year. Yep. So that was kind of. I think you got 2 scholarships.
I only got one. I got the one that was designated from Lester Rogers.
Very cool. But those are opportunities to take advantage of, engage, participate. Now, we only had 3 people that went to the Board of Accountancy. But those 3 people went out for lunch with Chris for an hour and a half after the Board of Accountancy. You think that was, did you like Chris? I mean, was he effective as a presenter, as a manager?
Oh, yeah.
communicator?
I like him.
Like I've known him since I come to town. But he was kind enough, and he had offered, I went to some other meetings with him, and he was standing up and said, anybody who comes to a Board of Accountancy meeting, I'll take in lunch. I said, Chris, I've got 4 people. You taking us to lunch? He said, without a doubt. And sure enough, we were at lunch and I talked for a while. And at that time, they were still recruiting for folks who attend SCAPA. And the folks that went, one of the questions said, what would you like to see at a Fall Fest done by SCAPA? And so we surveyed those students that were there. I had them email me 3 things they'd like to see. I sent that on back to Chris, and we just keep lines of communication open. Is he well connected in the community? Oh, you bet. And that's why we bring speakers like that here. It's power. Please.
So whenever you're seeing these things about the conference, like the leadership conference or any other things, especially at the career fair, if you reach out with different accounting firms, I know a lot of them do leadership conferences. And it's really important that you attend those because it'll kind of give you an idea of the mindset of that company. So you can talk with the employees, you can learn what their mindset is. So like at Webster Rogers, I found that everybody kind of works together and everybody knows everybody and they have a very personal connection. And I really like that. So I saw that, I like that. And I'm like, okay, I want to work here. What can I do? So I really recommend that you attend whatever conferences that you can to get to know your potential employers better, to kind of see where you want to work. Because if you apply for a position, you have no idea what the atmosphere is like in the workforce, and you get there and you don't like it. It's kind of like, it just kind of hits you out of nowhere.
And by the way, that's a plug for internships. I always encourage my students to have at least 2 internships. Why? A, to get some experience, but B, I'll do an ABC. Experience, to find things you like, but I'll tell you the most important thing. Find things you don't like. So, and I've had many students in every field go to an internship, say, I don't like this. I mean, it's like the students that go pre-med or go nursing and say, I like blood. Shots. I don't want, whatever it might be, have that experience. The average student changes majors 3 times. That means some change it 6 times, some 0 times. It's okay to change. Now's a good report. Some change 4 times. Thank you. And I'll share my experience. I managed an H&R Block office when I was in college, a few years back. I realized I'm not a tax guy. Tax is more like law. Some people love law. Some people love taxes. That wasn't me. I found that out while I was in school. I'm still a CPA. I did audit. I did consulting. I did a whole bunch of CPA stuff. I've done a lot of business stuff, but taxes weren't for me. We got a great tax program here. Brad Johnson, outstanding, VITA program, excellent. The experience you get, even if that's not what you want to do, not a skill to have.
I would say this was very important. Thank you, Dr. Scott. Everyone get a round of applause.
These guys, because these guys go out and do things. You know, you guys go out and do things. So urge and encourage. Any other questions? You guys are a great source of inspiration and knowledge. No, let's give this guy around. Right. Let's talk a little bit about ChatGPT. How many have heard of ChatGPT? How many have used that ChatGPT? I want to ask how many have cheated with ChatGPT.
Yeah, don't ask that.
That was a good question. You know, I did like this go. So I'm gonna give you a couple of things, I'm gonna go why. First, I'm gonna talk about what it is and what it isn't. And we're gonna go through. And if you need to go, we're on overtime. Appreciate your indulgence. I know we started dinner late. There are 3 links. I'll point out to you one of them right now. If you want to see the presentation of what's going on, there's a tiny URL at the top of the screen. I'm going to go ahead clear this. tinyurl.com/career capsule newsletter. Take a picture of it, make a note of it. There are 2 newsletters talking about ChatGPT, about 85 million jobs being lost to artificial intelligence, and 97 million jobs being created. And 12 million. It's also a career conversation.
This is that thing you showed me where you could ask the question.
Yeah, we're going to do some live demonstration. So what is ChatGPT? It's artificial intelligence. And I'm going to start by saying it's not intelligent. It's called artificial intelligence. Well, it's not intelligent. It takes words, it projects, and it answers questions. It answers them very well sometimes. It answers them wrong sometimes. It makes things up sometimes. Book titles, podcast titles, other things. So when you're looking at ChatGPT, you need critical thinking, critical thought. ChatGPT will instantly respond. You can ask it a question, give me an outline, review a book. I put in my resume, give me a cover letter, translate it to Hebrew, to Arabic, to Spanish, to French, translate it to Chinese, to Hindi, instantaneously. It is cool. It is a powerful tool in the right hands. Educators, many are afraid of it. School districts in Seattle, New York State, City of Baltimore, around DC, and a whole bunch of other places have banned it. Now, not banned it, banned CP, banned it. So why would they be fearful? I commented on a post, I said, okay, we're educators. We either bury our head in the sand, and if the sun is still shining, we're going to get sunburned in our butt, because it is a tool that our students are using. I have colleagues on the West Coast, I have colleagues in the Midwest. One on the West Coast, their department is, we don't want anything to do with this. I'm saying, well, you may not want anything to do with it, but your students are using it. Colleague in the Midwest, I was talking to her, she's saying, I told my class, we're going to be using it in the classroom. We're going to learn how to use it ethically, honestly, and effectively. And the students who kind of smiled because they were already using it, they were shocked that they were going to actually be addressed in the classroom. So the tool is powerful. My first post, I was late to the game. I'm going to show you, I was first 5 days of ChatGPT. You want to see an accelerated curve of adoption? Over 1 million users were online with ChatGPT in 5 days. It took LinkedIn 14 months. It took Spotify 5 months to get to 1 million. Facebook 10 months. You look at that and say, 5 days? As of the end of January, there were almost 100 million independent individual users of ChatGPT. 100 million. Has it been popular? Yeah. A lot of people use this. It's a powerful environment. And a lot of people fear what they don't know. Educators went through this with the calculator. That is the end of math education, the calculator. Wikipedia, that is the end of knowledge as we know it. Everyone's going to use Wikipedia. The problem with Wikipedia is you and I can go in and edit Wikipedia. We can go in and change anything we want. I have. Now, I like to stay honest. I change things to correct things, to add things. I actually added FMU as an AACSB school because they didn't have in Wikipedia FMU listed as an AACSB school. And we are, so I changed that, I added it, great. But not everybody is as noble, not noble, but not everybody is putting the right things in. Because you can go to Wikipedia and lie. I encourage Wikipedia use in my class. Why? Because it's great background information. But I also say you can't use it as an authoritative source, and no educator is going to let you do that. Verify. Yeah, you're going to see facts listed, but you got to do some digging and find some peer-reviewed journals or some other tools or environments that is going to validate what Wikipedia said. You can't trust Wikipedia, basically. Point blank. The internet, Google is going to ruin education. Everyone's going to find everything they want to find. And you try searching on Google and go to the 6th page or the 5th page, you don't always get what you want. You get good things, and there's a lot of good stuff there. This tool is amazing, what it's going to do, what it can do, and what it currently does. So I've got 3 slides that I'm going to show. And then we'll show and tell. And I'm going to have you asking some questions, type them into ChatGPT. And I'm going to show you, there's a lot of fear right now. And the Gartner hype cycle is actually pretty cool. If you think about it, we're about somewhere in here at the peak of inflated expectations. I went ahead and I'll give you my fear. In December, I guess I was late to the game. First 5 days, $1 million. I was online the second week of ChatGPT, so I was late, right? In December. So the second week in December, I was live, I was testing it. I tested my accounting exam. I said, okay, here's some questions. My first 5 out of 6 questions were correct. Wow. ChatGPT entered 5 of my 6 questions right. My students can cut and paste, they can go into my exam, take home exam, I can't do that anymore. Next, 6 out of 7 questions were wrong. I was scared when I saw 5 out of 6 right. I was more scared when I saw 6 out of 7 wrong. Well, why were you scared? Because my students are going to go into this, they're going to say, great, let's go ahead and type in the test question. It's going to answer it. And the scary part was the answers were very logical. Answers were conversational. The English was great. The thought process was interesting. As a professional, I knew they were wrong. As a student or novice, you may not be as able to judge the right and wrong. So you've got to be careful. It's an incredible tool. It's a powerful tool. But in the hands, use it for what it's good at. Use Wikipedia for what it's good at. Use Google search for what it's good at. This has taken the world by storm. Microsoft, Elon Musk, a bunch of investors out of the gate, $1 billion apiece, put into the kitty. It was originally a nonprofit. Now Microsoft put in $10 billion, 49% ownership, no longer a nonprofit. I think they're going to get some value out of $10 billion. And they spent $24 billion on LinkedIn a few years ago. $10 billion for half interest in this company. So that's a 20 billion valuation, right? So you look at that and say, well, what do they intend to do with it? Well, they're going to integrate it in Microsoft Office. They're going to integrate. I would question right now that they're testing it with both. You can go in and see how Bing reacts to using the ChatGPT. Bing, because of the errors, I would not want to trust Bing that was solely using ChatGPT, artificial intelligence, as a tool, because it can be very wrong. I would ask it for books. Give me a list of 10 books, 20 books. A colleague of mine wanted 10 books on a certain topic, 2 of the books he couldn't find on Amazon. He asked ChatGPT, do these books exist? Basically, it said, no, I made them up. Podcasts. I asked for 20 podcasts and links to those podcasts. I could see, and I tried to find some of them. A lot of those were made up. ChatGPT stopped in 2021. They have a fixed data set, a billion entries. It's not current. You're not going to get anything about Ukraine. You're not going to get anything about anything from tornadoes that just happened. Anything since 2021 is not going to be in ChatGPT. They're up to version 3.5. They're coming up with ChatGPT 4.0 next 2 to 3 months. It's supposed to be 500 times better. So maybe I'll retest my test. A fellow academic at Brigham Young University, he got 300 accounting academics together, said, enter your tests. Now I did my test before he was aware, before he started this. But he had 300 academics. I was helping edit the paper. 300 folks that posted their tests, posted their results, and got grades. My average, as I said, 46%. My average for that exam was about almost 84% from live students. So are my live students doing better than ChatGPT on my accounting exams? I actually did multiple accounting exams. The short answer is yes. So be wary, be critical, be thoughtful as you use this tool. But it is a cool tool.
So I have a question.
Let's go ahead.
I see you on LinkedIn all the time, talking about this, comment on everything that has anything to do with ChatGPT, you always talk. And you speak about it on the educators, how you should, I guess, encourage students to use it. And
Educators, I think, need to embrace it, not hide it.
right, because you talked about how technology is coming and educators are either gonna go with it or they're gonna like shy away from it, right? So if it's not that accurate, why would you as an educator promote it? Do you see where I'm coming from?
For accounting, it's not very accurate.
Right.
But for English, for history, could it write a paper? Could it write a blog post? I like it as a springboard. I like to get ideas. And let me show you some examples. Now, again, this tiny URL at top, Career Capital newsletter, the December issue and January issue, I got a February issue coming up. The first one is just a post in LinkedIn. I'm going to go to that post. I'll stay as long as you want to play with it, experiment. I'm a LinkedIn advocate, I'm a fan. I got such an amazing response to this first post. This first post said, AI chatbot, you can read it as well as I can, fails. Final 46%.
Well, for not studying, and taking the test in like 2 or 3 minutes, 46 is.
And so, but when I went down, it was interesting to read the comments. Okay, so I had over almost 13,000 man, right? And I had 9 reposts, 185 comments, and 173 reactions to this. I consider this, and by the way, we never make a post on LinkedIn. Every time somebody comments, you want to respond, you want to get that engagement, then LinkedIn posts to other people. All right, pre-med professor and concerned about student they use it for academic assignment completion, and they will, without a doubt. They're using it. So as an academic, I can't say let's shy away. So I gotta have the key here is take a look at the comments. Quite exciting and worrying and equal measure. To be honest, I'm sitting on the fence of the whole issue. There's just interesting people saying interesting things. So again, the first URL is that right here in the post. These two are newsletters. I'm going to go into the first newsletter. Within 30 days of posting this newsletter, I had 3,000 subscribers. My newsletter online. Now up to 3,500. Helping you learn shit. AI interview with career topics. Now again, I have 2 dialogues in my newsletters. It's either Fast Approaches, or the latest edition, Career Capsule. I send it out to 6,000 people in email. I have a link to the 46% post, and it's actually an art. AI It was in Pueblo, Colorado, last summer. An AI generated art won first prize in the summer festival. They had a summer gathering. And everyone was protesting. It's AI created the art, but they'll know an artist using AI created the art. There was no prohibition against it. Kept first prize, kept the prize money. I actually published a picture here. I showed it in one of my newsletters. AI could generate music. It took me 30 seconds to generate a 10-minute upbeat background music for my courses or anything I want to do. Things with this in all kinds of venues. The chat GPT is just a language interaction. There's a tool out there that actually you can put the text and say, here, get a talking head, and you can have different shapes, colors, ethnicities, different voices, different accents. And there are tools out there that you don't have to be speaking. You can have an AI chatbot chatting for you. So if I go, first question I put in, how do I prepare for a job interview? And this is a response instantaneously from ChatGPT. Research the company and position before your interview. Make sure you do your homework and research the company and position you are interviewing for. Include the mission, values, products and services, recent news and events, their competitors, anything else relevant. Prepare answers to common interview questions. Okay.
So is your reason for, I guess like promoting this so much, and you know, I know you talk about it a lot, but is your reason for this because it is AI?
I have another company in the career space. We have a curriculum, we work with career service offices, so I've got another business. It helps that business and helps me help students.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm not sincere because I'm playing on LinkedIn and it's fun, but it is, by the way. But it is a tool that this is ground floor stuff. And what Chris said about 5 years from now, you're going to be talking about pre-chatbot. This is called an AI chatbot, artificial intelligence chatbot, ChatGPT. But then, anybody know what Google just came out with? Alphabet, Google just came out with?
It came out with Alphabet?
And then, so they announced it. They didn't open it up like AI. OpenAI is the company that's but they have a select few. Their demo crashed. They asked a question. I did a Google search. They said, you know, was excellent. Who was the first to discover excellent? We talked about the James Webb Telescope, which is pretty new.
Yeah, I saw that too.
But I did a Google search on that. I said exoplanet was found first, and it had James Webb's first observation of an exoplanet, and that's what it was taken from. Because even the Google search said it was first, but it wasn't. It was European. And AI's been around for over 60 years. And it's been an interesting tool to interact. I've got a timeline, so it's another thing down the road. Anyway, so that's one question. Prepare questions, dress appropriately, arrive early. All those are good things. Now, would I have thought of those? Probably if I had to write an article about it. Right? I gotta figure out what I want for a career. Take an assessment.
Ooh, can it help with that? Can you ask questions like that?
You can ask anything you want. What are good free career assessment tools? I said, it said take an assessment. I said, give me those tools. By the way, ONET is real good. Like it. I mean, Myers-Briggs, he was talking about that too. This is about personality profiles. And then I said, where are some URL links to those assessments? There they are. Myers-Briggs, Career Explorer, ONET. Go on down. Write an article on choosing your career. So we can write you papers. Write me 100-word on something on time. That's why academics.
I like that.
It's very vanilla. It is not going to give you creative. When I say, I asked the question once, when did dragons defeat the Roman Empire? And it came back and said, about 653 BC, King so-and-so, and his dragons beat the Roman Empire, but about 200 years later, they captured it back and it's not on. Now you can ask the same question 5 times and you get 5 different. I've since tried to ask that question. It says, dragons are mythical creatures. He didn't beat Roman, can't defeat the Roman Empire, and it just gives you straight answers. What are the best colleges right now? And a good list. Pennsylvania. What are 10 LinkedIn tips? I didn't like the LinkedIn tips because I wrote a book on LinkedIn. I'm a LinkedIn professional. So, it's okay, it's not bad. But again, if you're a professional, you can read into it and say different interpretation. What are top 10 resume tips? You should look at your profile to the book too. So you read my book. I'm reading it. I actually, that's a good question. That's a book I should be a career. And then I did what is Scottsdale best known? That's me, Scottsdale. Okay, American technology entrepreneur investor, co-founding Giant Dell Technologies. I follow that by application. Also known for philanthropic work, being an advocate for education, social justice, and work with Dell. And a friend of mine said, Scott, first I was wrong, but the rest of it's true. So that was nice. Nice to. So that is the comments. Now you look down for the commentary, and when I see news articles, what I'm doing, I look at newspapers, magazines, I like to read the comments. The comments give you insight on how other people are thinking, not how I was often had my own comments. But as a tool, it's pretty cool to see that interaction, see that apply. All right, so let me go back to the next journal article. Next newsletter. And this one was a post talking about jobs. Again, you're welcome to subscribe, you're welcome to participate. AI anticipated to eliminate 85 million jobs and create 97 million. World Economic Forum. WEF, the guys that were Davos, that was an article they wrote, and they projected. So, and I put the link here. Recording of an interview I did for 30 minutes. Afterwards, I changed it. Additional power limitation laws. And so here's the job lamps. What jobs are going to get popular or what jobs are going to go away? Went through here. And then I did an interview, another conversation with ChatGPT. The top 10 skills. That was done ChatGPT. It was too long, didn't read. Let's do a conversation about future jobs. So what jobs can AI best replace? What are jobs that AI cannot replace? Next 20 years, what are some of the fastest growing areas of job growth? I'll give you two areas of job growth. One is an AI auditor. I told you it lies. It makes stuff up. You didn't see somebody go through and validate. Truth tester. Another is prompt engineer. Prompt engineer is someone who knows how to ask the questions to bring out the best. Like he was asking interview questions. I asked him 2 simple questions. If you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be? If you were a food or fruit, what kind of fruit would you be? And people don't ask like those questions. It's a thing. I don't care what they say. I want to hear the logic. I want to hear the thought process. Next 20 years, what are some of the fastest growing areas of job growth that AI will not be able to do? For some specific jobs, previous query that AI will not be able to do. It remembers your queries. It remembers the previous, and you can say, change it. I went in here and I generated a cover letter. And I said, okay, add to it, Big Four, accounting internship experience, data analytics with Python, add that to a cover letter. Go ahead and talk about some soft skills such as, came out pretty decent letter, get greater than B-. No imagination, no personality, really does, it's a good springboard. When you look at that, I had to do a diversity statement or something. And I said, let's do scratch, and then let's let ChatGPT give us a diversity statement. The diversity statement was okay, but there was a point on there that we didn't include in our letter. So what do? We extracted it, transferred it to the statement, and added that in to complement what we've already written. It's again a great springboard, great tool for them. When I did that letter, the letter, I asked it to translate it into Spanish. My wife's Hispanic. Checked it with her. The Spanish is real good. French, a little bit of French. Language accounting. And that's on my LinkedIn profile, but That's not the language that we can translate to easily. I said, put it in Hebrew. I like Sunday school. Put it into Arabic. Put it into Russian. Instantaneously. Put it in Chinese. Put it into Hindi. Put it in Urdu. I've got a business partner in Pakistan. Put it into Latvia. Have Riga. All of these languages instantaneously printed out a letter in the characters in whatever language it was going to be part of the Chinese. It translated instantaneously. It's pretty cool. All right. So, any other question? Will the impact of AI increase the number of jobs for people or take away jobs from people? Impact is complicated. Okay, that doesn't tell you anything. Life can both create technical jobs, automate certain tasks, allowing people to focus more on complex tasks, create new opportunities for employment. Our rate hike can replace AI can replace certain jobs that require less complex skills, decrease the number of jobs available. Ultimately, the impact of the jobs will depend on how much. What are 20 of the top books about the future of work? And I said, you know what? Some of these may be old, so give me the year of the publication dates. 2014, 2016, 2005, 2015. And we're at 20 top podcasts. Here's where it made up a bunch of podcasts. I asked for the URLs for the podcasts. Maybe some that were really up to non-existent. So authors beware, GPT sometimes makes up the names of books, podcasts, and research. So this was a which board can I do this? And here's some comments and things like that. So you go through it. I answer every comment. Let's go live into the.
Wait, I have a question to ask the how to pass Dr. Scott's class.
All right, well, let's ask that question. I'm gonna write a question right here. True.
I got one.
All right, well, it would have to know more details.
Yeah, but
How do I pass my
I
accounting class? Submit it. And
studies.
good idea. 10 of that like make.
After how to
Take detailed notes. Ask questions. Make sure you understand the material before moving on to the next topic. Use online resources, practice quizzes, tutorials. Every chapter in the book I teach has an example quiz. I've told my students 3 times to do the sample quiz. And some of them actually listen. But the question I'm going to ask can't be too far off from the quiz in the book. But use online resources, work on practice problems, and solidify, form study groups. We do cohorts in our class. We have study groups established. I got classes to teach. Get help from your professor, TAs. We also have the constant office here. Get help from work ahead if possible. Give yourself extra time. Take advantage of extra credit opportunity. I'll offer 10 points of extra credit added to your final grade. So that's, you come to an event like this, you go right up in class, 1 point added to your final.
Ask that thing how to impress the interviewer.
All right, let's do that.
Let that be the last one. Good.
All right. Do I impress my interviewer? Submit.
I meant to say, like I said, we can not use that.
Research the company and job. Dress profession. Good hygiene. Reach the interview early. Meet the interviewer with professional hygiene. Speak a clear, confident tone. Good eye contact and smile. Smile cannot be underestimated. Show enthusiasm. Be prepared. Qualification experience. Ask thoughtful questions on the job. They ask you, do you have any questions? You say, no, you've been quite complete. I don't really have any questions. You're not gonna get it done.
Oh, really? You have to ask me questions?
You better ask questions.
Like strategic questions, right? Ask that. What kind of questions to ask? the interviewer?
And it's often it will come
Yeah.
from what they said. It'll
Yeah.
probably springboard off of things they said. You talked about, what's the first day of the job like? I one brilliant question I just heard about 2 weeks ago. I'm gonna work on career stuff. Chapter 17 is ChatGPT. But the question is, when you start a new job, ask them, can I get a copy of the eval that I will be evaluating on at my first evaluation? It's nice to know what they're gonna be looking for in you, what you're gonna find was cool. Well, thank you. What question, I mean, let's go around. Anybody have any questions you want to ask ChatGPT?
I have some that is, for example, more like deep, like for example, what is the meaning of deep or
You mean
like
like-
of living? Like,
What do you mean of life?
Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't tried, but
I wonder,
See what it says. Me, I'll ask a thoughtful question. Has been debated throughout history. No single answer. The meaning of life is subjective and personal. I mean, life experiences. Something to do that no inherent time. Now, I said artificial intelligence, ChatGPT is not intelligent. It is reading the words, and as it's generating the word, it's reading the word forward based on its data set. A fixed data set, not combing the web. Not going over and saying, oh, look at all this stuff. It's going through and saying, oh, well, based on all the stuff I practice, and they actually went to Africa and $2 an hour, and a whole bunch of people actually interacting, getting good English. Was human interaction that helped with the language as well. But it's a lot of resources. Other questions you want to ask? It's free to use. They have a $20 a month version now if you want. Any questions you want to explore? Accurate for $20.
Well, I'm not accurate, but remember how you just said artificial intelligence isn't intelligent?
Right, but is engaging, and often enough, it'll give you kind of Wikipedia answers.
Yeah.
Which is not always right either.
Right.
It also doesn't give you sources.
What are the $20 a month?
It just gets you faster access, and you won't get blocked out. And it's more dedicated and more capacity. Space sometimes.
Right.
We clearly have. Other questions?
I would say how do you improve yourself? And that'd be our final question tonight. Is
I said it in one area.
everything, 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 because it's
Time management.
In time
how
management.
do I improve my time management?
I have a friend of mine presenting for 3 hours tomorrow for the master MBA class.
That's not.
Say that again? Friend of mine is doing a presentation on time. She wrote a book on time management, and she has a 3-hour presentation. in the master class.
What's the name?
Anna Maria.
so.
Here.
She was asked by the school to talk about time management. She just wrote a book.
Oh, many more.
It is.
That's okay.
Is there
I'll
a
create a
reason
reason.
why it's 3 hours?
No, well,
That's because of the time and.
I'm just happy to be. 3 hours. You need more than an hour and 3 hours. So here's the answer. Identify goals, create a schedule, prioritize, limit distractions, take breaks. Walk the dog. Okay.
so, oh, sorry. How do you think this is gonna help the patient?
I was gonna help education. It's going to. Let me talk about jobs from an accounting perspective. I've talked about it before, that the accounting pipeline is losing ground. There's less folks going to accounting, even though there's more demand. So wages are going up. It's a pretty decent career to go into, especially long term. But AI, something called RPA, robotic process automation, ML, machine language. These are tools that when a first-year accountant used to go to the job, I worked for Big Four C3. When I went on the job, I was doing bank recs, I was doing confirmation, I was doing grunt work. And sometimes drinking the soda. Okay? But making photocopies. And I had green bar paper that I had to test to see if the computer could add. I think, 150 pages and do a 10 key and go down and say, yep, the total's right. Grunt work. That can all be done artificially now. You can scan things, have the tool do the job for you. What used to take 100-person company 100 years ago would have 30 accounts. Annual books. You want to get a budget? The CEO says, give me a budget. Okay, the accountant say, I'll have it to you in a week. I want to hire 2 more people. Okay, I'll have that to you in a week. Raise sales by 10%. I'll have that to you in a week. So these budgets were long manual processes. They came to spreadsheet. Now the spreadsheet says, I'm going to hire 2 more people. 30 seconds later, you put the 2 people in their salaries, add 30% factor for whatever. Budget. Our sales are up 10%. How do my expenses react to that? Oh, I have built in the algorithm, I've built formulas. Another 15 seconds, I can play with the budget and infinitum. I now need 1.5 accountants for a 100-person company, not 30. So a job's lost. Well, you can do higher level stuff. Accountants used to hide behind the green eye shade and the calculator, the 10 key, and do calculations and do the books. Now they're part of the C-suite, chief, the CEO, CIO, CFO, the C-suite in companies trying to figure out and do this stuff. Being able to be at that level, now they can make decisions. No longer do they have to do the work. Well, the same thing's happening. There's less grunt work to be done when somebody graduates. They have to be at a higher level. These tools are going to allow you to springboard into them. So back to a long answer to a short question. Back to the original question, if we're going back to say, well, how are students going to use it? I love this as a springboard tool. I love this to say, okay, well, where's some good books, some resources? Give me an idea on time management. Give me an idea on how to, what's a good answer for this. Give me an idea on give me some industries. Give me some insight into the automotive industry. What are some of the issues they're dealing with? I can go to Google research route, or I can do the ChatGPT route. And I get some pretty valuable insights. Valuable information. Hopefully that answers your question. I'm an academic. I'll talk for 2 hours to one more question. So thank you.
You could probably do that for calculating how to promote better accountants. You know,
I actually did a curriculum. I teach Sunday school. I was teaching about social justice. I asked him, what's a good curriculum for social justice? He gave me the curriculum of 6-step content curriculum. I did some drill down, asked some more questions. I was teaching Hebrew this past Sunday. I said, give me the Hebrew alphabet, give me the vowels, and the student that was learning, we were using, when we were reading Hebrew out of the book, he was looking at the ChatGPT screen that had the letter, and then the names of them, which had the sounding and how we sing it out. They're silent and what sounds. And it was just a tool that for learning language as a process, I found helpful. Instead of a half-hour session, we were almost an hour. Cool. It's a neat environment. It can do some cool things. And it can also not. There are some limitations. One is bias. It's dependent on input of stuff that's already on the web. So are there biases on the web? You bet. Are there incorrect things on the web? Sure enough. So what it's doing is just spitting back information it pulls in the web. Based on that information, garbage in, garbage out. I switch it around, I call it garbage in gospel. It goes in, but it comes out like spreadsheets. 90% plus of spreadsheets are wrong. Why does everybody use? Well, there might be rounding errors, might be missing a formula, something's going on because they're not being created by programmers. They're being created by you and me. Don't have programming backgrounds. So it's easy to make an error, hard type a number over a formula, make it visually pleasing, whatever it might be. So that's the kind of stuff that I like it in academia, because I can ask a question in front of the class. I'll give you another example. I'll give you this question and I'll ask in class. I calculate return on assets. Okay. Now it's going to say, here's the formula, here's how we do it. Return assets, financial measure, calculate return assets, total assets, where are we, 20%. If you gave me this answer, it would be wrong. It is the formula for return on assets. Okay, net income divided by total assets. Anybody else? The denominator is incorrect. Thank you.
Yay!
Yay! Last semester, you learned. I know. Okay, if you said net income over total assets, well, net income for a period of time of the year, return on assets, return on equity, this is for average assets, average equity. So you have the beginning, ending, divided by 2. This question on the test, and you took the latest number, you get wrong. So what's going to happen? If you looked at that and said, yeah, multiply by 100, that's a good point. That's yeah, you want to get a percentage. But that looks reasonable, doesn't it? And it kind of looks reasonable. And had you not taken my class last semester, you'd say, oh, that's right. But you figured it out. Okay. Do this one. I didn't plan that.
Yeah.
Any other questions? It's evolving, it's changing, and you're on the ground floor. Again, you're welcome to use the resource in the tiny URL. I love tiny URL. I use that very often. And thank you for your time. I wish you a pleasant evening.